Hey guys, before I begin the video, one of my closest friends is going through a lot right now. They're having a really hard time. I'm obviously not going to go into detail, but it would mean a lot if you could donate to their Ko-Fi or Patreon and show them lots of love and support. I don't even shout out or advertise my own Ko-Fi or Patreon, so you know this is serious. Anyways, to donate, just check out the links in the description below. It'd mean a lot. Thanks, guys. What's up guys, LeopoldTheBrave here, and welcome to my Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time review. A few days late because I was sick, blah. Now, while we may have gotten Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled last year and then the Insane Trilogy a couple years before that, this is the first Crash Bandicoot game in 12 years that's actually completely new. Not a remake, not a remaster, a brand new adventure with Crash Bandicoot and his friends. And foes. Now, I want to go ahead and give my conclusion right from the start and say that this is in fact an incredibly fantastic game and a worthy sequel to the original trilogy that Naughty Dog created. But this isn't going to be a boring review where I just chill and go over the positives, because there are a couple flaws and I want to point them out. Not to complain about the game, but so they can do even better with the next Crash game, Crash Bandicoot 5. It's about slushies or whatever, I don't know why that was the first word that came to mind. But anyways, let's begin. Let's start with the gameplay, since it's something I actually covered in my review of the demo. The game controls and feels great. It doesn't feel one-to-one with the original trilogy or the Insane Trilogy, but instead it has its own unique game feel that still feels like Crash Bandicoot. Kinda like how Mario Odyssey and Mario 64 feel completely different, but they still feel like Mario. Anyways, everything from the demo felt pretty much the same. The slide jump, how far Crash jumps because he has insane jumping reach, his running animations, the masks. Everything just felt so good. And speaking of the masks, they were a blast to play, even if they were a tad bit overused. That's not a legit criticism though, that's just a me thing. I'll always be a fan of the pure Crash platforming over anything else they add, like vehicle levels or gimmicks and whatnot. But the masks were still fun. There was Lonnie Lowly, who can phase things in and out of existence. There's Capunawa, who can slow down time. She was my favorite. There's Akano, which gives you a really long glide, lets you destroy metal crates and reflect projectiles. And then there's Ika Ika, which allows you to shift your center of gravity. Now, Akano took a bit of time to get used to because I didn't quite understand how he controlled. I kept overshooting jumps with his glide. But it turns out, if you deactivate his powers, you'll drop like a dead weight over wherever you are. You don't get carried by the momentum or anything, so it makes precise jumps a lot easier. Ika Ika, however, is my least favorite mask and the one I found to be the most unpolished. So here's his problem. When you turn yourself upside down, the top of the screen becomes bottomless pits instead of the bottom of the screen, which of course makes sense. But sometimes the death zones for those bottomless pits are a bit too close to the screen. Sometimes the momentum of shifting gravity back and forth alone would still find a way to kill me in a bottomless pit even when I was completely on screen. It was the only time in the game where I felt like the deaths weren't my fault and more the game's fault. But other than those few Ika Ika segments, using the masks was great. There's also a couple vehicle levels like riding Polar or using the jet ski, and they worked fine too. They just need a slightly bigger hitbox for the crates. It's real easy to miss. Now you've probably also heard that this game is hard, and yes it is. The developers clearly took those Dark Souls of platforming memes to heart, and wanted to squeeze a couple more rage compilations on YouTube like they did with Crash Bandicoot 1 in the Insane Trilogy. Lonnie Lowly's introduction level in particular is pretty brutal for just being the third level of the game, especially considering how easy his segments later on in the game are in comparison. Now, if you're just playing the game normally just to complete it, I feel the difficulty is 100% acceptable, especially with modern mode giving you infinite lives. But if you're going for full completion, man, the developers have really pulled some cheese. Now, there are loads of aspects about fully completing this game that I really like. For one, I like how the bonus levels are done this time around. They're more elaborate and puzzle platformy. You have to think about which boxes you want to break first and make sure you don't have to go forward and backward and break things in a certain order. It's super cool, and I like how it makes me use my brain like that. I also really love the Flashback Tapes and how they have platinum medals of their own, so you can learn to fully perfect them instead of just completing them normally. Inverted mode is great too, giving you a brand new look and feel for each level and giving you a second chance to earn more gems for a skin. Then there's the perfectly insane run relics, where you have to get through a level and collect all 5 objective gems without dying once. Now, I'm okay with this idea for the vast majority of levels, and I can't wait to jump into this challenge when I get ready for it. But I am dreading doing this on levels that involve rail grinding, jet skis, or polar, since you can't go backwards on any of them. And considering how tiny your hitbox is for the crates in all these segments, it's going to be a pain. But now here's a couple of the problems I have when it comes to fully completing the game. For one, the time trial relics. Now, the time trial relics have always been a staple of the Crash Bandicoot series, starting from the third game. But my problem with them here is that the platinum relics are the ones required for 100% completion instead of the gold relics. Now, I've gotten all the platinum relics in previous games before, but it makes you wonder why the gold and sapphire ones are even there in the first place then. I guess I'm just glad you don't have to get the Toys for Bob DevTime purple relics. They're so difficult they don't even show up on the main HUD. Anyways, another tiny problem I have with the completion is some of the hidden crates. Now, the original trilogy was no stranger to having hidden crates, but with Crash 4 it feels like it's almost every single level where you're going to end it just missing one crate. And oftentimes they're hidden entirely off screen with no way to possibly see them. Behind the steps and the level Run It By You as an example. Whenever the original trilogy would hide a crate behind something like that, you'd still always be able to see a tiny bit of the top of it or the corner of it out of your peripheral vision or the corner of your eye or whatever. But in Crash 4, some of these hidden crates are literally impossible to see on the screen. I just got them by a lucky guess. Now, I totally get that the devs didn't want us to breeze through everything and be done with the game after our first playthrough, but I think that just a couple of the methods they took to increase replay value were a bit cheap. I mean, I'm still gonna do it though, but yeah. The other playable characters, Dingodile, Tana, and Cortex, are all fantastic too, and I had a blast playing with them. The only problem I can really think of is Tana's wall jump is a bit wonky, but that's literally it. I'm in love with controlling these characters, and I wouldn't mind if they got more levels as DLC in the future. Now, you may have noticed that I haven't really been talking about the story much, and that's because I'll actually be saving that for a different video entirely on its own. But for the animation, it's fantastic, fluid, bouncy, expressive. It's every way I expected a Crash Bandicoot story to look. And I'd honestly love to see a Crash Bandicoot animated series in this style. This is no doubt the best looking Crash Bandicoot game we have ever gotten. When it comes to the soundtrack of the game, there's been some mixed reactions. Some say it's fantastic, while some say it's not memorable at all, and I'm somewhere in the middle. After I completed the game, I went online to just listen to the soundtrack by itself, and I found a few tunes that I actually really liked. However, none of the songs in the game really stuck out to me while I was actually playing the game itself, only when I isolated the tracks and listened to them on my own time. I only really noticed the soundtrack during gameplay whenever they'd play a tune from an old game, like Cortex's theme or Entropy's theme. So I wouldn't say the soundtrack isn't memorable, it just isn't really catchy like a lot of the old games. I couldn't picture myself humming any of the tunes as I go about my day, or I can't imagine what a Smooth McGroove cover of any of the songs would sound like. Again, it's not a bad soundtrack, it's just kinda eh. But overall, that's my review for Crash 4. Yes, it had a couple problems that I needed to point out so they can do even better for the sequel, but it's still a more than worthy successor to the original trilogy and a proper sequel, and I can't wait to see what they do next. I loved my experience with Crash Bandicoot 4, and I'm still gonna keep playing it until I get everything. Toys for Bob, you did a fantastic job. Now let me know what you thought of Crash 4 in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. LeopoldTheBrave, out.